I thought, with everyone currently being in isolation at the time of making this video, and therefore probably getting fed up of watching box sets and TV and pottering around the house, you might be thinking, do you know what? I might read some of these comic books everyone keeps going on about. I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar industry with the movies, and I'd be interested to actually see what the fuss is all about. So I thought I'd make a quick list of some of the best comics I think to get you into reading comics that there are. They're not necessarily the best comics, and they're not sort of, well, they are pretty good comics, but they're a mix of ones that are sort of DC, Marvel, independent, and they should accommodate all tastes and all age ranges. So whilst there might be better ones out there or more well-regarded ones, these are ones I just think, if you want something that's easy to get into comics, these are probably my favourites because of the art style or the writing or both. The first one is Ultimate Spider-Man. This is largely recommended by a lot of people for a good reason. It is by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley doing the art, and it's a reinvention of Spider-Man for the 2000s. There are some pop culture references you'll just have to deal with, but ultimately, if you can get the first 1 or 2 issues of this, then you'll have a very good start and entry into Spider-Man stories. And this is pitched for all ages. It's not babyish, it's not too adult, it's just right. And there's a great scene in the first volume where Peter and Mary Jane are talking about him being Spider-Man, where he reveals it to her, and Aunt May thinks that they're up to things in his bedroom. And it's just awkward and funny, and you can see it being in a sort of teen film. It's a shame that they didn't have that in one of the films that recently came out, Spider-Man Homecoming or Far From Home. Well, where possible, I will put on here as well if they're available sort of for free, as it were, through Amazon Prime or something like that. Just so you don't have to obviously order something, which means it may not arrive in this current day and age. Next one is the Ultimates Volumes 1 and 2. Don't deal with the Ultimates Volume 3, it's shit. Ultimates Volume 1 and 2 are by Mark Millar, and there's a lot of information taken from these books that was used for the MCU and the creation of it. I think this is the best version of Captain America. It's got a great scene at the start where Captain America is sort of coming in on a plane and assaulting the Axis troops, and there's just some great quotes and great moments from that. But it's a shame weren't in the movies. There's a great line when he's fighting the Liberators where you've got a big A on his head for Captain America, and he says to one of the blokes he's beating up, they go, "Why don't you surrender?" And he goes, "Surrender?" He goes, "What do you think this A on my head stands for? France?" And it's funny. They wouldn't put it in the films, but it's just a great moment. And there's also a good scene where, after Janet Van Dyne has been assaulted by Hank Pym in quite a brutal way, Cap finds out about it, and he goes to do what a gentleman from the 1940s, or well, probably nowadays, should do to Hank Pym, and he sorts him out. And it's just a great scene where he finds him in a bar, tells him to get big because he wants to properly smash him up, and invites him outside, and he just deals with him. Really worth reading. Well, next one is an independent book called Giant Days, which I've spoken about on this channel before, from John Allinson, Max Sarin and Liz Fleming. It's about 3 girls who go to Sheffield University and their time at university. If you've ever been to university, then this will have moments in it that you will relate to. It's written in a fun way that has got lots of knowing references to university life. It's very easy to read, but also got characters you will care about, and it's not big superheroes smashing the hell out of each other. It's like a nice slice of life type story. The entire series is effectively finished now, so you can get them all digitally. This quite often comes up as part of deals on Humble Bundle, but otherwise they're all currently on sale, I think, at the moment. Or they quite often come up on sale on like Comixology and that. But definitely worth checking out if you want something that isn't superheroes, but you want a fun read that isn't too taxing, but also has lots of people you can sort of think about and relate to in the story. Next one is a DC book, All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. This has a accompanying, well, not accompanying, but it's got a animated movie that is very good. that you can also watch alongside it if you want. There's bits missing from the animated movie that aren't in the that are in the book, but that's fine. It's still a very good job. But this is effectively a whistle-stop tour of Superman and all the key elements that make him Superman. It's written in a sort of nostalgic way that also has a modern edge to it. Superman knows he's going to die, so he sort of goes about setting things straight as best he can. You've got a great moment with Lex Luthor. You've got him outsmarting him at the very end. You've got moments with the Parasite. You've got a moment with Jonathan Kent dying. He visits Bizarro World. Lois Lane gets powers. And what's good about it is things that you think are just sort of story beats early on come back round at the end. And it's clever in that way, and you feel satisfied watching it. And for Grant Morrison, reading this, and for Grant Morrison, there's not too much writing, and it's not overly verbose with it. It gets the point across, and it's a very, very warm read, I suppose. The next one is another Marvel one, Hawkeye, Volume 1, My Life as a Weapon. This is, I think, was it part of Marvel now? Oh no, but it's from Matt Fraction, and it is Hawkeye who's got an apartment block. He's not sort of doing any Avengery stuff in this, and he's just trying to look after his tenants, and so his neighbours and tenants, and just live his sort of downtime between doing Avengers things. Kate Bishop shows up, the new Hawkeye. He's got a dog called Pete's dog, and he gets involved with sort of local Russian gangsters. Later on in the series, his brother shows up as well, and you get some relationship stuff there. But it's just a sort of funny, enjoyable read. If they hadn't done the bit in Age of Ultron in the movies where Hawkeye had this family, this is really what they should have done with him as like his own movie, or even TV series. They should just have him knocking around this apartment block, just dealing with local problems. And being a bit of a sleaze as well. He tries it on with Kate Bishop and things, and he's just a dude, just trying to get on with the day. It's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's a really easy access point to Marvel now. And if you if you like it, you can go on to read the Kate Bishop Hawkeye series, which I think is really good as well. And they've also collected into a sort of small compendium too, called Hawkeye Private Eye, where she goes off to the West Coast and works as a private eye for a bit.
Okay, I have to include a Batman book, because if I didn't, people would be weird about it. There's lots of Batman books to choose from. You could have The Long Halloween, which is essentially a sort of beginning story with Batman. You could have the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, A Court of Owls. But when I was thinking about it, I thought one of the best ones to have is obviously Year One. It's by Frank Miller. It's not too long. Long Halloween might be long, so as to off-put people from wanting to read, because this is obviously about getting into comics. It's available free to read on Amazon Prime at the moment, so people don't have to be put off by having to purchase it or look for it. It's got good clear art, it's got a nice story, it's got characters people will recognise whether they're familiar with it from TV or film, and it's not overly complex, and it's a good setup for the Batman sort of world and the Batman mythos. And because it's in its own little standalone universe, you haven't got it weighed down by loads of continuity and things like that, and having to worry about things like the New 52 and what that means and what is that. So I think this is probably a good starter Batman comic for someone.
Next one is a Valiant book, Faith Volume 1, Hollywood and Vine. This again is the superhero story, but also a story about sort of normal people and fandom, and people who don't necessarily always fit in. Faith is a bit of a sort of heavier set character, but she never lets it sort of get her down, even though other people are sort of making comments and references to it. And it's just her being a superhero and surviving in the real world almost, because the Valiant universe isn't so dense with superheroes. She has to try and struggle with a secret identity and tries to work out how that will go, in a more real world setting. And she works at this sort of clickbait website where they're making up listicles or whatever they're called. And it's just a fun, enjoyable read that if you like, you can then pan out into the rest of the Valiant universe, it is very accessible and has characters for everyone. And it's currently undergoing a bit of a resurgence due to, I think, new ownership or new management. The final one now is Red Sonia. Red Sonia is good, and she's one of my favourite sort of non-superhero characters because she's been around for donkey's years. She totally annoys some people because of the way she dresses, but she never ever in any of her stories acts in the manner in which she is dressed, because she wears this chainmail bikini and they constantly reference it, and they say, and she would always defend herself and say, no, dress how I want because it distracts idiot men from while they're looking at me and I'll chop their heads off. And she's made a vow to never sleep with anyone anyway until they can beat her in combat, and no one can beat her in combat. It's sword and sorcery, it's like Game of Thrones kind of land. I think it's better than Conan, to be honest, because Conan's just a bit too sort of super butch. And she has fun adventures, and there are jokes. She's got a sense of humour, but she's also sort of quite hardcore. It's got monsters, it's got gore, and there's a multitude of stories with her that you can pick and choose from. Everyone will always refer to this Gail Simone run, which is good, but I don't think it's like the best Red Sonia. My favourites were ones like I can't think what they're called, but they're sort of one-shot ones. I'll show some covers up for you while I'm talking about this. They quite often come up on things like Humble Bundle as a big collection you can get for like a tenner. Otherwise, they're available quite often on sale on Comixology, and she often turns up in crossovers with other characters, runs with Betty and Veronica, Poison Ivy and Harley, those kind of things. They're always in that kind of mix of characters that can cross over with lots of other people because she's so sort of accessible with that. And there's a good series, Worlds Away, where she ends up in the modern time in New York, and she tries to adapt, and she doesn't actually like it, but she'd rather be back in sort of primitive times despite all of the mod cons that you think someone from there would be like, wow, amazing, but she's just like, no, I don't like this, it's too comfortable, I like roughing it a bit. So Red Sonia, just any book from the series that you want to pick, I'd say would be worthwhile reading. So look, those are some picks. Have a look at those. I'll be putting on the video, like I said, but whether they're available on Prime or digitally on Comixology or somewhere like that, so you can at least get them to have a look at, and let me know what you think. I'm sure there's lots of other comics people can recommend, but these are like access points. They're not meant to be the best of the best. They're meant to be things that you can pick up, read, enjoy, and then hopefully inspire you to look at other books. Some like honourable mentions was things like Lumberjanes and that, but I chose Giant Days over it because I just prefer Giant Days. But there's lots of other sort of worlds you can enter with this that will pass your time. And to be honest, now with things being cheap on digital and very accessible, there's no real excuse not to be able to. You don't have to wait for something or have the room to put it. I know I'm running out of room now with shelves, so I have to keep rearranging them with things like omnibuses and stuff like that, because I just can't collect any more trades. I have to stick to omnibuses. But look, let me know what you think, and please feel free to like and subscribe. Thanks.